Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sustainable Pixel Podcast. And today I'm joined again with my friend, Rachael. So, Rachael, thank you so much for joining.
Yay, thank you for having me. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm super excited because today the episode that we're going to be talking about is going to focus all about decluttering. So, decluttering, I first heard about it when I heard about Marie Kondo with her Netflix special, Tidying Up. And, this is a little bit late to the game, I guess, because her Netflix special premiered like the beginning of 2019. And she, was already famous for her art of decluttering and just being able to teach people how to be more organized in their life. But I really first heard about her through the Netflix special only the year before. And I know, Rachael, that you've known about her for a while. You've read her book, and I feel like you embody this whole decluttering habit.
That is so sweet because my closet's messy. But
Yeah, but I feel like every time I go to your house, though, like, it's so organized, it's like everything has its, like, place and, there's not, like, a million things, a million boxes, like, piled up. I have so many boxes everywhere, and it's just
I have a
it's
lot of
too
boxes
much.
in my closet. No, I feel you. I have a lot of boxes.
Gives me anxiety, though. And, I guess it's, like, it's different because it's like, oh, like, I come to your place, and I'm like, "Oh, it's so organized compared to my home."
No.
And then you're like, "No, this is, like, not organized
Well, I
enough."
hide everything in the closet. So I have like a list of things that I still want to get through, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah. So, like, for my first introduction was, like, through the Netflix special, but you have read, Marie Kondo's book before. So, like, tell me how you've learned about her and also, like, what you took away from reading her book.
Nice. Thank you. Well, I heard about the book because I think I was at a Christmas party, a New Year's or Christmas Eve party. And then her book was one of the white elephant gifts. And people were
Oh,
like, I
wow.
want this book. And then I was looking at it after the person who won it. And I was thinking, oh, this looks like such an interesting book. It's about decluttering. My older sister is like a pseudo minimalist also.
Mhm.
So I've kind of like been introduced slowly and gradually to the concept of minimalism or owning less material things or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
Since maybe high school is when she really became a minimalist, sort of. And that was like 2008, maybe around that time. And then like steadily throughout college. So, anyway, so I saw that book and I thought like, oh, that looks interesting. Plus it's like it's called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, and the subtitle is The Japanese Art of Decluttering and Organizing. So I was like, I'm
Mhm.
Japanese. I want to read that too. And then I didn't actually read it there. I don't think I fully read it or ever read it because I don't own it. I think I browsed through it in Urban Outfitters that around like when it came out a couple I don't 3 or 5 years ago.
Mhm.
And then I browsed through it, but I also was like, I going along with that minimal um I don't know, mentality. I was like, I don't need to buy this book, so I didn't purchase it, but I listened to the entire audiobook on YouTube, and that's a thing that someone can do if they don't want to purchase another book. I mean, you can also rent it from a library or you can buy it if you want to, but it's more like a how-to book. So I feel like as long as you take the steps and like um, the information that she's giving you. I didn't personally feel the need to own the book, but I listened to the entire audiobook. So that's my introduction to her book and followed her organizing tips basically. So that's how I got introduced.
Nice. That's super awesome. I love how you actually connected it to, like, not needing to buy the book because that is really important, right? Like, you're not buying something to have, like, an extra thing, like an extra object. You were making sure that, like, oh, you could listen to it on YouTube. That's a non, like, physical version. And that's actually really important to think about too, like, when it comes to, like, being a minimalist and making sure that you don't have an excess of things that you don't need. And that also actually connects to like a sustainable mindset of just like, okay, like you don't need the book because like, create like having the book too, like there were resources that were used in order to actually create it. So I love that, you're so naturally like sustainable too, like without even trying. It's great.
That's so encouraging, and maybe it was also that I couldn't that I was, like, a student and I wasn't working at that time or something, but
Being broke definitely helps.
yeah, that contributed to it too. But, and I'm all for supporting, shopping small and supporting locally and even, like, makers like her, I think that what she's contributing and gifting to the world is beautiful, I think, of cleaning and organizing so that one can enjoy their life and enjoy their loved ones and have more time to, spend time with their loved ones and, invest in experiences rather than the time it takes to organize or find something or whatever. I think that that's a great message. The book is worth investing in. I'm just that was my personal experience. I listened to the
Absolutely.
audiobook, but, yeah, and that's a good thing to think about too.
Yeah, no, that's super awesome. I also love the way you framed it too, of like, the gift that she's giving to the world of like, organizing, like you get your time back, right? Because you don't always have to worry about like putting things away or I mean like you still have to put things away, but just making sure that each thing has a place to go. So you're not like constantly worrying about where it can fit and that it
Mhm.
doesn't and then it causes like problems. And
Mhm.
I think like with decluttering, it's like everyone has clutter, right? Like everybody has clutter in many different ways. And I feel like it also
Mm.
brings into like not just like your physical stuff, but like your emotional state. Cause I know for like myself, I have so much stuff, right? Like I have so many things. I'm a hoarder, which is like a good and a bad thing because I'll take things because I think like, okay, like I'm gonna find a use for it.
Yeah,
Um,
mhm.
but I think actually, like, the more important thing is to, like, okay, well, do I actually have a use for it? And, like, should I take it or should I, like, let someone else who will actually use it take it? Like, especially if it's, like, something free, right? Because that's always my problem.
Right.
All this free stuff, and I was like, "Give it to me, give it to
No,
me."
I know.
Yeah, so I'm trying to be a little bit more disciplined on that. And, with like, COVID and like, 2020 being home so much, I've been very much stuck in my room for such a long time staring at all of my clutter. And I think this is like the blessing in
Mhm.
disguise for myself at least. I feel very lucky to be able to work from home. And super like big blessing, but also I have too much stuff
Mhm.
and I don't need it, like, it's things that I've, like, held on to since I was a child, and I think
Mhm.
it's, like, important to, remember I had all these things, and I was a different person when I bought all these things or acquired all the things
Mhm.
in my life, and I have to go through them to see, like, do I really need these things? And to
Mhm.
try to find a home. Like, that the trying to find a home part actually, though, has been a really difficult part for myself, at least, it because like as like a sustainability professional, like I especially like focused on waste, I always want to
Mm.
make sure like, this doesn't just go to the garbage. I want someone to take it. If I have to, I will try to recycle something if it looks like it can be recycled, but
Mhm.
like I'd rather somebody use it
Right.
so that it can actually like be
Get more
used for
use.
yeah, like whatever the purpose was of whatever the item it is.
Mm.
And so, that was, like, my personal experience of just, like, seeing all my stuff and realizing, like, this is too much, and it gives me anxiety seeing all of it,
Mhm. Yeah.
and, I don't want that.
No, I agree with you too. I have it gives me anxiety as well, and then there's some points for me, though, what I'm working on personally is, that surrender of, this is not perfect or whatever, but I'm content with what I have, and I don't have to get rid of everything right away, or I don't have to use up everything that I have right away for my own personal experience because I have so much sometimes I have so much anxiety, regarding, like, my closet or something that's not organized, but I like
Mhm.
how you were just practically saying, like, it for practical terms, yeah, it is a good to think about. I like how you explained it because 'cause I'm trying to learn to be less, anxious about things.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I actually really like that because I think I stress myself out way too much, right? Like thinking I have like so much stuff and I just need to calm the heck down.
Oh, yeah, and for our purposes, though, for this podcast, like, it's a good thing to address, like, our what we do wanna clean and declutter, because that's, like, the purpose, and
Yeah.
it's so helpful in so many different ways. So,
Yeah.
my mind was just like, "Oh, don't I hope you don't feel shamed or something," because sometimes I feel that
Yeah.
way.
That's important to remember that, right? I think that we, especially like when we're critiquing ourselves, we are our own worst critic. So it's actually important to like, okay, like recognize your shortcomings, but also like don't like tear yourself down, when you're already down.
Right, beautiful, and you totally weren't even tearing yourself down either, you were just being honest about about feelings, emotions, anxieties, thoughts, or whatever, so that was good. I'm just always like, "Oh, no, I don't wanna," sorry, I started overthinking.
No, you're okay. It's important though to like recognize everyone on like where they are in their own journey too, because it's like it's more than just like their own journey in like decluttering or whatever it is. It's like being able to recognize like okay, like what is your capacity, right, to be able to
Mm,
actually even declutter. Because I
right.
feel like I always have that issue where like I even for myself like I have lists of things that I need to like declutter, like that I need to go
Right,
through. I have like
right.
a bunch of papers, like a bunch of my old school stuff, like and I'm talking like all of my school stuff, like from
Mm.
kindergarten.
Oh, I have a box like that in the garage. Mhm.
Yeah, and it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a lot, and I was like, I already cut down a lot of it. I cut down like K through 12 for the most part. I still have a lot of stuff from high school and a lot of stuff from college. So I was like,
Mm,
that's my next step.
mhm.
For me personally, I think time is what helps. I think time had like the more that it passes, I'm like, okay, I'm sure I really like appreciated all of that information that I learned at the time, but after a while you're kind of like, well, I don't really need it and I don't need to and I don't look through it, right? Cuz that's
Right.
that was my rationale, right? To keep all of these notes or like whatever it was
I
from my
know.
school days and I was like, nah, like practically I don't need them. So it's like over time I'm like, okay, I can get rid of this. I don't need it now. And so yeah,
Right.
that's for me personally. And that is important, right, to recognize because like, yeah, we have like a lot of stuff. And so it's very slow to be able to tackle everything that we have. And so I think that that's also important to recognize.
Beautifully said. I think everything that you said, I agree with right now. To recognize one's own capacity, and we all have different capacities as well, so to not shame ourselves when we're trying to declutter or with our goals, and also to, be gracious with ourselves, and one thing my boss always tells me too is to, be real, and as a coach, like, as a good mentor and, like, a design coach or whatever you wanna call it, she said, she gave me the advice to be realistic with your goals. I know you have maybe high goals that you wanna set, but sometimes we don't have the physical capacity, or, like, our energy will literally give out, I get migraines and I'll,
Mhm.
like, start throwing up. Or, that's, like, very drastic if it goes crazy. Or, like, just generally, sometimes you wanna just treat yourself, you wanna relax, you wanna watch TV, be with your family, and not be, quote, unquote, "productive." And that productivity or meeting your goals doesn't, define your value or your worth, and that's something that she was trying to ingrain in me, and, intellectually, I have internalized that I'm trying and I wanna continue, but there's also personal goals that I'm like, "Oh, I wanna achieve this because then it proves that I'm capable," so there's always, like, a struggle, but, um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good to point out your capacity, and I think what you said and giving grace to ourselves is very important in our journeys of, decluttering or just any goal setting in general.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's super important because even with like decluttering, it's like you if you're overwhelmed, you have to set, like, the smaller goals. I think this is also just, like, in
Mm,
productivity, right? Like, I think decluttering has really, like,
mm,
opened my eyes to a lot of things. I actually have a friend who really loves Marie Kondo's book of the life-changing magic of tidying up. Like,
mm.
she loves it so much, and it literally is, like, the number 2 book for her after the Bible is literally I'm quoting her, like, what she
Aw.
says. And she's like, "Oh, decluttering is more than just decluttering stuff because of
Mhm.
the anxiety that you get. Like, you need to declutter your mind in order to actually be more productive." And so
Mhm.
it's like if you are overwhelmed by all of your stuff, that's also not productive either, right? So
Right.
making sure that you do like the small steps and the small boxes of things
Mhm.
um that need to be organized and whatnot. And so once you get that win, it kind of motivates you to keep going and to keep decluttering because it's like
Mhm.
you did that and it was easy and it wasn't so bad. It's kind of like peeling off like a band-aid or something, right? Like
Mhm.
you peel off the band-aid and then once it's done, you're like, okay, that wasn't so bad. And then the healing begins.
Oh, beautiful, and the healing begins. That's so true. What your friend said too, it's not just decluttering, and what you're saying, it's not just decluttering your physical things, but your mental clutter with that, because psychologically that takes up so much space, and where anxiety or um it, or also just kind of affects our concentration, our ability to work and to be productive too, especially if we're working from home. That
Mhm.
physical space and environment that we're in, and the visual clutter is such a big impact on our, um, on our focus and our attention, and then cleaning that also can just release a little bit of that energy, so then we can focus that energy more on getting things done, enjoying our lunch, being mindful while we're eating, resting, communicating better, like all those
Mhm.
different things.
Yeah, and just, like, being present, like how you were saying earlier, you're able to just focus on where you are, like, with the action that you're supposed to be doing, whether it's, like, eating or spending time with loved ones. That's really important, in terms of just your overall health, which is, like, crazy to me that, like, this can connect to that, right? But I feel like a lot of us, especially people in the US, like, we don't think about how, like, our stuff can affect our mental well-being, and
Right, so
yeah,
true.
and, like, everything like, places are bigger here, right, like, than other countries, like, we have more space, and
Right.
yeah, and for us, we're like, "Oh, we can store it in, like, the closet, or
Mhm.
we'll buy a storage unit
I
or
was just
something."
gonna say that, right, which is so
Yeah, it's not, like
yeah.
it's not like a good use of space if you really think about it. Like, sure,
Mhm.
it's like good for, college towns or something where students like, don't have a place to live and then they can store that stuff temporarily. But like that's
Mm.
also the point, right? Like those things are only supposed to be there temporarily, but because like there's just so much space where like, oh, like we need like a bigger house, a bigger whatever,
We
and
need to
then
fill
we
it
like
or something.
yeah, fill it up. And that's like also
Mhm.
a problem. I feel like it kind of retrains us to be like, there's this space here and we don't need to fill it.
We
That is, like,
don't.
a key, right?
Right. We feel the need to fill it, but actually if we fill it with that negative space, I think it opens up mentally and emotionally too. It gives you kind of calm and peace. It opens up the imagination and possibilities for being more creative really, because you're not kind of suffocated by visual things that you see all around, you know?
Oh, wow, that I didn't even think of that. I feel like I'm not, like, as creative of a person, so I, like, don't think about, like, how to kinda spark that creativity too, right? Or, like, to enable it to flourish. So that's a really interesting point. But I also wanted us to circle back to decluttering because earlier you actually sent me this list of these 18 points on decluttering. So I was wondering if you could talk about those.
So the 18 points were from actually don't know if she had 18 chapters or 18 rules. Anyway, Marie Kondo writes different rules for her KonMari method is how she calls it. She combined her
Mhm,
name. Her KonMari method of decluttering and organizing. And
mhm,
I found this list. We can find it online, but I found it on someone commented on a YouTube video, so I copied that. And
mhm.
from the audiobook, these are basically the steps. So I'm just gonna go with it. Basically, she gives a set of rules for her method of decluttering and how this method kind of works, um, and makes a lasting impact rather than, when we have spring cleaning where we annually clean and then a week
Mhm.
later it gets dirty or messy, or we forget we leave our things thrown out.
Yeah, so something that isn't just, like, you just put things away, like, this is something that is more, I would say, impactful, right? Like,
Mhm, mhm,
in terms of, like, trying to, like, change I would say, like, kinda changing your own behavior, really, or, like, your
mhm.
natural instincts.
Mhm, mhm. That's a beautiful way of putting it. That's a great way. That's exactly what it is. It's like it's kind of her lifestyle adoption, I guess, of her mentality for cleaning, tidying, and then living how you wanna live, basically. One thing I will say is I'll just, I guess, touch on a few of the points that really spoke to me and resonated with me, and that I really liked, and they're also the very first beginning steps of the KonMari method. So if someone's just starting decluttering, they can start with these steps because this is exactly how she starts. And these were the most effective for me. The first one kind of goes along with how we were talking about our physical space and how that environment affects our work, affects our productivity, our creativity, our ability to relax, and all of that. Um, and the first step is to think about before decluttering, before starting organizing, before touching anything. Think about the goal that you're tidying up for, define the reason why, and visualize your ideal self and the purpose of why you want to declutter. So basically, when beginning, she recommends visualizing or just creating a mental image of how you want your ideal lifestyle or home to be. For example, I'm writing it on a piece of paper. For example, I want to come home and make home cooked meals a few times a week. I want to have a streamlined wardrobe with pieces that I love.
Mm,
I want to have free time to read a book that I've been wanting to read or do yoga.
mhm.
She even gives a really specific example, drinking chamomile tea in my favorite mug in the morning. It's like very specific. And she said,
Yeah.
yeah, this specificity is exactly what you're looking for. You want your goal or end purpose to be as fleshed out as possible,
Mm,
because this final goal keeps you motivated when tidying or when organizing. And it also, I think, like, it personally provides a lot of inspiration, like when you want to declutter. So like I know you and I were talking in the very beginning of summer, and even last year when we were both talking about decluttering and you had your Gantt chart of what you wanted to organize and how you wanted your TV and this computer to be a monitor for your work, and you had like a very productive mental picture of how you wanted everything to be, and then you said, oh, I want to go through my junior high sentimental items. I want to go through these
mhm.
hair clips that I have from my childhood, all these things that my parents gave me that I'm never going to use, but that you appreciate and that you really loved, but maybe now you don't need them anymore or something.
Mhm,
And I had the same thing, how I'm living with my parents. This is going to be my bedroom, but it's also going to be my work design studio. I kind of
mhm,
want to have an organized art set, and then I want to have my clothes all in maybe a rainbow order or something. I don't know, something very specific.
mhm.
And she said fleshing that out or visualizing that ideal image of how you want the end goal to be is basically the thing that will keep you motivated when you get discouraged.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's the first one, and that's what I found, like, I like doing that personally, writing down goals in the every year.
Mhm,
So at the beginning of every year for the past 3 years, my 3 of my friends and we were all in a small group at church. We always do a thankfulness list, a list of 5 things or 3 things that we are thankful that God did in the year. Then we do 3 hard, difficult trial times, and then 3 areas we grew or something, and,
mhm.
maybe a list of 3 goals that we want for the next year.
Mm.
And yeah, and I really like it. We call it, like, vision casting, not fortune telling. But, like, we're creating, like, the vision that we want for the future, and also asking God to kind of lead us in achieving those goals, or, leading us in however he's wanting to grow us or mature us or take us through.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a really good reminder of all the things that God's done for us and like all the hard times that we can talk about. We're all reminiscing, "Oh my gosh, I remember this. I remember this breakup. I remember this. You were looking for a job. Oh, you got fired from a job. It was so hard. We were crying." And then we think, "Oh, God took me here and oh, he provided a another job for me or he provided this new internship or all these different things and it kind of reframes our mind and gets us motivated for the year and that's kind of what she says to do in the very beginning and I really like that.
Yeah, no, that's like a really great habit to do. That I think that's awesome that, you do that with some friends. So it's also like, keeping that accountability as well. Not only just reflecting on yourself of like, all the great things that like God has done in your life and then also keeping accountable for whatever goals that you might have set. And yeah, no, I think that's really great. And all of these things that we've talked about, like they're just really good habits to build and to have, right, when it comes to like really any part of your life. So I think like that's really great that that is like the first point for like this like method of decluttering.
I yeah, I thought that was brilliant that she did that and I think it also helps her clients too to personalize the decluttering process so that they don't feel like they're forced to get rid of anything. And her process is very intuitive and very personal. Obviously, her mantra is to only keep items that spark joy. So her whole thing is it could be like the raggediest shirt in the world or this messy pants. But if it sparks joy for you, then you keep it. She's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
that thing, and so that's her philosophy. And so by beginning with that inspiration vision board or vision list, it really like personalizes the process for the individual, which I like. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good and that's really important because it's like we were saying earlier, like it's just your decluttering process is very different for each person. So you definitely
Right.
need to make it like work for you, right? Because there are so many different conditions.
Right.
Something that I might find like if it's the same item and we've had it for the same amount of time of what or whatever it is, but I find joy in it, but you don't, like then you can throw your item away and then but I
Mhm.
will still keep mine. And something I also remember was like, oh yeah, like don't tell other people what to throw away, which is also a hard one, right?
Mhm. Mhm. I
Because you're like,
know.
like we have too much stuff, so we all need to throw things away. But, like, it's just, I guess, light encouragements for other people if you live with other people that have too much stuff and you would like them to throw the things away.
That's one I need to work on. That's a really good one. Positive.
Yeah, just a disclaimer though. I'm still a work in progress too. I'm saying all these things, but just I'm not perfect.
That's so encouraging. Yeah, yes. So yeah, I love that, and that yes, that's another point that she says as well later on,
Mhm.
is to focus on your own items rather than another person's, and I think that also helps too, because then we a lot of times we're focusing on other people's things because we wanna control things when we feel anxiety or we feel things are out of control. On the
Yeah, in our
reality
own life, right?
right, and sometimes things our other people's possessions, they are out of our control. So we can only control
Mhm.
what we have in our own lives. Just the goal of decluttering in general to achieve that the end purpose, whatever the end purpose might be, to drink that mug of tea with peace, to read that book without like anxiety or stress. Whatever that goal is, it really does give you more control over your life in general once we declutter, which is I think the point, which is another freeing result or outcome of it.
Yeah, no, I love it. I also love that like you brought it back, right? Because that's like the first step that she like offers. And then it's like remembering what is the end goal, right? Like remembering that all throughout the entire process and all really all throughout your life, I think is something that you need to remember and that you constantly need to remind yourself because it's like if it's honestly not worth your time, like just don't do it.
Right. Girl, that is something to remember. We be stressing too much over some things in our lives sometimes, but it's so true. what you said.
Yeah, it's, like, funny because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, like, this started out as decluttering." Now I'm almost like, "Is this just, like, a philosophical?"
Sorry, I know now we're like no, dude, all the points that you're bringing up, yes, it's becoming that. It's like a philosophical it's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, like, funny because like, I don't mean to, like, cut you off on this, but it's just, like,
Mhm.
it kinda reminds me of just, like, the whole, like, minimalist, like, movement, or I don't know if I should call it, like, a movement, or, like,
It is, yeah, that's what
um
they call it, I guess.
yeah, because
Philosophy,
it's just, like,
lifestyle, movement.
yeah, it's like the minimalist thing, it's like a lifestyle change is literally how they kinda market it, right? Because they're like, you're being a minimalist for everything, like all the stuff that you own, the place that you live, even like people, which
Oh,
kinda
that's another
sounds
thing no, that is, mhm.
yeah, and it's, like, important, right? Because you wanna just have the right people in your
Mhm,
life
mhm.
to, like, stay sane, like, make sure that you have the
Mm,
right people in your life who will encourage you, but also, like, admonish you, like,
mhm,
in a loving way, right?
mhm.
And have you reach towards your goals. And it's like a lifestyle change of knowing, like, you're not bound by, like, this thing, you're not bound by this person's opinion of you. And it definitely connects to,
Right.
like, sustainability, but I think that anyone
Mm.
can really connect to it. It's definitely not confined to just the sustainability bubble, which I think is also kind of a beautiful thing about all of this that we've talked about so far. It's not everything is just stuck to its own category. And there's a lot of connections where you can make
Mhm.
with just so many different issues or personal things that you may be going through. But anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. So, bringing it back to decluttering, I want to bring us to our last point that we'll talk about, which is the gratitude part of the KonMari method.
The gratitude to her whole philosophy, and I think that also is why it's so positive, and it's very joy filled and hope filled rather than shame and anxiety filled. You know, a lot of times decluttering is like, it's you guys have we have so much declutter, so much stuff to get rid of, and like the TV show Hoarders, or
Hmm.
just like a spectacle where people are watching hoarders. You know what I mean? I think this is more. I think that's why it resonates so much too.
Yeah. American TV, like, they just like show you all of like the bad stuff.
Right? Because it's like, great, I feel better about my life at least.
Yeah, like hoarding. I even think
Anyway.
about like storage wars, right? Like where there's all these
Oh,
storage units of things that like people left there because they didn't have enough space for it in their house, right? And then it's entertainment and it's like, no, okay, like maybe we shouldn't really be encouraging all of these bad habits.
right, because it'll internalize, like, no, for real, and then it internalizes that judgment that we have on others when we're
Mhm.
watching it to our own lives, which, just, like, naturally that happens.
Yeah, and no, I think that's like really like the nice thing about like especially for in the US and just like mainstream media of like having a Netflix special with Marie Kondo, like that is helpful because it shows you a like good habit to have and it encourages other people to like do the same. Like it's inspirational, which is really nice.
It is.
Yeah, so yeah, no, like, I think, that it honestly, like, everything we talked about, like, decluttering, it's just I honestly feel even a little bit better right now, like, I feel like I have a little bit of a weight, lifted off my own shoulders of just, like, even talking about it and just kinda, like, going
Mhm.
through, like, our own experience of, like,
Mhm.
decluttering, and I think that that has been super encouraging, so thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Rachel, for, like,
Oh my
talking about it with me.
thank you, Shirley. That is so sweet. Thank you, and I feel the same way. I also feel, the weight lifted too, and I feel lighter.
Yeah, no, it's like it's amazing like how this can be so helpful to even just talk
Mhm.
through like our own clutter and our own like experiences. And also its connection to like everything else of how it connects to like our mental well-being and all of that. So yeah, no,
Mhm.
this has been this has been really fun. And everything that we touched upon today in terms of like decluttering, like it's really only a snippet. This industry, it's so big.
Mhm.
Like there's professional like decluttering organizers. We only touch upon like some of Marie Kondo points. Like there are so many different points
Mhm, mhm.
and you can read her book if you're interested. If your library is open, like try to find the book and rent borrow it from them. And there's also so many resources on the internet these days. So if anyone is interested to learn more, like look up all of this, like Decluttering, Marie Kondo, like
Mhm,
the Netflix
mhm.
special, so many different resources. So yeah, thank you all for just like listening. I hope that was helpful in some way. I just hope that you can start your journey in decluttering and continue to listen to more Sustainable Pixel podcast
Yes,
episodes.
yes.
I'm gonna try to get as much content as possible out, and so I hope that you're interested, and go ahead and follow me on Instagram, and like and subscribe, I guess, to the episodes. I don't know if that's actually how it works, but I'm just gonna say it because I think that's what people say.
Right?
Yeah,
Right, that
so
works.
thank you so much. Thank you again, Rachel, for joining.
Thank you, Shirley. It was so fun. It was a really good topic and combo too. I
Yeah, and
enjoyed it.
stay tuned for more. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Now, if you liked this episode, please subscribe to this podcast on the platform that you're listening to get notifications when I have new episodes out. And share this podcast with anyone that you think might like it. I am also on Instagram and have a Facebook page, so I would super appreciate a follow and a like. I am at Sustainable Pixel on Instagram, and on Facebook, go ahead and search the Sustainable Pixel podcast, and you should be able to find my page. So thank you so much, and I hope you all stay safe, continue social distancing, wash your hands, and make good choices. Bye now.